recording. Okay, so we started this lecture last Friday and we're continuing, and it's a very interesting area of retailing, okay, about supply chain control. And it's well worth having a good understanding of what happens in the market in this. So we will finish this lecture today, and then tomorrow we will do retail micro marketing. All right. And then the next week, which is the final week of this module lecture, we're going to do international retailing. Okay. And I will go off video. And if anytime today you find me muted, it's because I'm having a coughing fit. Okay. I'm hoping it's not going to happen and we will have a clear lecture. So stay with me, and we hope to have a good lecture this morning. Okay. And this is a very interesting bit of retailing, and where we you know, in life, it's businesses and everything is about relationships, power, control, competition, coexistence, and all of that. And in retail, we will see how this actually work, the dynamics work today. Okay. So yeah, I will now go off the video. And can you hear me clearly? I hope you can. Okay, and I'll put the chat function on. Yeah. Yes, thank you, Mai. Okay, so we're going to look at supply chain control. Okay, a few questions and stuff I'm asking here, and we will answer all of this, and we will talk through this entire thing as to whether supply chain is more about partnership, or actually it's more about dominance and control. Okay, and here we are largely talking about the UK retail. Okay, and again, in terms of UK retail, we're talking largely about the grocery sector, the most dominant sector in the market, the most powerful sector in the market, and the most established in the world, the UK grocery retail industry. Okay, it works in a fashion which is well advanced, very far and well advanced than other countries in the world. So, who controls the supply chain? The question is it the producer or is it the retailer? Now, I will be interchanging this word of producer. I'll call the producer a supplier. I will call the producer a brand, a particular brand. I may keep using different words, but it will all mean the producer. Okay, the producer, the manufacturer, the supplier, the brands, the big brands. I'm putting them all under this one thing of suppliers. Okay, and the retailer sits on the other side. Control depends on who holds the greater market power and who directs the distribution system, which seems to be quite an obvious statement to make. Examples of producer-led chains. Now, it's worthwhile just knowing this as to which chains are out there which are producer-led chains. Cars are producer-led chains. It is not dominated by the dealerships, but it is dominated by the producers. Like, for instance, a BMW dealership, a Mercedes dealership. It is not the dealer who dominates it. Okay, it is led by the producer, the manufacturer, the brand. Newspapers, using local exclusive distributors, but it's the newspapers who lead the chains. And mobile phones, Apple's retail network, for instance. Okay, but the shift from supply push to demand pull. Remember, we talked about it in the past in one of the lectures about how it used to be a supply push system in retailing, but how over time the supply push has shifted to actually demand pull replenishment systems. And the demand pull replenishment systems, it favors retailers, yeah, because they control everything. It is the retailer who controls the information of the market demand. It is a retailer who controls information on the store sales data. It is the retailer who feeds the brand manufacturer and not the other way around. There was a time when brand manufacturers pushed their products to the retailers, but over time, this relationship has fundamentally shifted. Now, why has it shifted is something we're going to be talking about as we go through today's lecture, okay? And retailer concentration, of course, has increased retailers' negotiating power over suppliers, yeah? And why has this happened? Again, this is something to be answered as we go through. And why, and what has happened with consumers today, especially in the UK and many other European countries, not quite so in other parts of the world, okay? Say in Asian markets, in African markets, in Latin American markets, is not dominant like it is here, okay? So the system rivalry and supply push versus demand pull. What is this? So I mean, the very picture is kind of showing, isn't it? That there was a time, and we're kind of showing it in terms of this, that brand producers used to be all powerful. Now this thing has shifted, this whole picture, because of big putting on collaborate. Never mind. So brand producer is to be all powerful, okay? And brand producers who push their products, supply push system controlled by powerful producers, powerful brands, like any brand you can think of. You think of Nestle, Coca-Cola, Schweppes, whatever comes to mind. Yeah, they could push their products, supply push to the retailers, knowing full well the retailers are going to sell it to the consumers, and consumers were dependent on retailers to buy these particular brands. Over time, though, these retailers have themselves become brands. Okay, they were not brands before; they were just retailers. They have become brand retailers. Why has this happened? And this power shift here has resulted in the producers becoming less sort of important because they are controlling what they sell, the information they have, and how much they want to buy from producers. So newer retail-led demand pull system controlled by powerful retailers. Okay? And how has this shift happened? So retailer buyer power over suppliers. So how has this shift happened? It has happened because of a buyer power, of the power of the retailers over how much, what, when, they want to buy from suppliers. Market forces giving retailers greater power over suppliers. But this market forces is something that the retailers have had significant control over, significant role to play. They have not depended on the market to do it for them, but they have created it for themselves. Okay? Chain stores and increasing retail concentration. We do know, don't we, that in this grocery sector, for instance, that this entire sector is very concentrated, right? We actually have, in this big market, we actually have 4 dominant retailers. Yeah, 4 dominant retailers: Sainsbury's, Asda, Tesco, Morrisons. Yes, there are others. There are others like Aldi, Lidl, Waitrose, Marks and Spencers, and which are all co-op, and others which also have a share in the market. But if you look at the market as such, it starts off with Tesco having the largest share of the market. So it is a handful of dominant retailers that are controlling the market. When that happens in the market, the control happens that way, then it becomes it becomes more of a pull than a push. Yeah, they're dominating the system. Retailers determine product ranges and how they are supplied. Retailers pretty much determine what you and I are buying from the retailers, right? And in fact, at the moment, if for instance, okay, say for instance, you want to create something, you want to make something, if your retailer doesn't sell it, you actually can't buy it from anywhere. Most of the retailers are kind of, competing on products, competing on prices, and we are pretty much dominated by the retailers. It's up to them what they're supplying. Yeah. Relative bargaining positions in retailer-supplier relations. See, suppliers are economically dependent on key retailer customers, okay? And when are we talking of suppliers? We're talking of suppliers. We're talking of, let's think about it, big suppliers and small suppliers. So we're talking about big dominant brands. We're talking of Coca-Cola, we're talking of Pepsi, we're talking of Nestle, we're talking of all these different brands out there, big brands that all of us know, many of us like a lot, okay? These suppliers, to a lesser extent, are dominated or economically dependent on retailers, and we'll talk about this later. However, most of this other brands we buy, most of this, stuff that we buy actually are sold by very many small suppliers. There's small suppliers who are supplying to the retailers. And the retailers are so powerful that for the retailers, it is easy to switch suppliers. In the market, I have got some information out there for you, and I will put some more out in terms of that there are so many thousands of suppliers out there in the market, 6,000, 7,000 suppliers out there in the market who are supplying to our 4 dominant retailers. Okay, so you can imagine how easy it is for me if I was Tesco and you guys were the suppliers, how easy it is for me to move to decide, oh, I will pick up that particular supplier or that particular supplier, because it's up to me. It's up, it suits my fancy to do that. But why would it suit my fancy to switch suppliers? Because it's can be so many different things. Yeah, it's easy because there's so many suppliers. I can choose whoever. It may be because they're giving me preferential treatment. It's maybe because I can control a particular supplier more. I can squeeze a particular supplier more. Whatever. There may be a whole lot of different reasons, and we'll go through them too. Retailers control shelf space. We talked about it before as well, and we are talking about it now, and it'll become more and more clear to us as to how do they control this. Retailers control shelf space and all in-store marketing levers to disfavor products. Now, this is a very, very powerful position, right? If I have the control, right, I have the control to decide where I'm going to place your product in the store, what kind of marketing levers I'm going to pull to favor, say, your product as opposed to somebody else's product. You as a supplier are very dependent on me. You are very dependent on staying in my good books, right? So does it look like coexistence in the sense of very lovely camaraderie between retailer and supplier? Well, to me, it does not. It seems to be more of a power play, control and power, yeah? Right. Exercising retailer buyer power. How do they do that then? How is it that the retailer, we know that they have a lot of power. We know that they have a lot of power, but how do they exercise that power is what we want to know, right? They can do it by intimidation. You see, many of these things we're going to talk about today, you might think, no, this is not possible. Surely not. We live in the modern world. There are so many regulations. Remember, right at the start, we were talking about the regulatory environment in the UK in the retail sector and how stringent it is. And then we find out today, at the pretty much at the close of the module, that actually, despite all the regulations and all of these things, that there are certain things happening in the market and rampantly happening in the market, and it is being allowed. Is it being allowed as in being known and seen, or is it being allowed because some of these things are happening surreptitiously and suppliers are so scared that they are unable to talk about it? Okay, so delisting threats and other retailer bargaining tactics, what are they? They intimidate. You see, I kind of have some videos and stuff of suppliers. And in fact, one video I used to love a lot was a 45-minute video. But unless you saw the entire 45-minute video, you wouldn't quite get to the bottom of how it really feels for a supplier. Okay? And this was a lettuce supplier in the UK and supplying to a particular, I won't name the retailer, but supplying to a particular retailer. And how the retailer over time absolutely squeezed the supplier, that the supplier came to the point of wanting to commit suicide. Okay, his entire family was dependent on supplying to this particular retailer. And think about it, the product is not a product that can be kept, it's durable product, it's a perishable product. Lettuce is a very perishable product. And this video showed how at one time they sent a consignment to the retailer and they found soil on one of the lettuces and they sent the entire consignment back. Okay, can you imagine what does the supplier do in that situation? They are stuck with thousands of lettuces. Where are they going to sell it? The retailers are so powerful. And how this retailer squeezed the supplier to reduce and reduce and reduce price. And then on top of it, a buyer can actually And it does happen. A buyer can call up a supplier and say, by the way, we want you to pay us 50,000 extra. And they do that. Many of the promotions you and I see in a retailer, okay, we think, oh wow, look at Sainsbury's, how fantastic. They're doing this lovely promo, and they're giving me two for, 3 for 2, etc., of a branded product. Okay, say it is Coca-Cola, okay, and they're giving you 2 bottles for 1. Okay, 2-liter bottles, 2 for 1. And you're thinking, wow, look at them, so lovely. Sainsbury's is doing this, Tesco is not. Who is paying for it? The question is, it is well worth knowing, even if you don't work in retailing, it is well worth knowing who is paying for it. It is not the retailer who is paying for it. It is the manufacturer. It is Coca-Cola paying for it. And it is in the control of the retailer to do all of that and make and make you and I feel really good about it, that we've got this and oh, how wonderful, blah, blah, blah. But it's actually being done by the manufacturer brand, and it is a retailer controlling all of that. Okay. So they can intimidate suppliers. They use scare tactics, as in other words, you pay me 100,000 in the next couple of days, or else I will go to a different supplier. I mean, to me, to be honest, and these are all this actually happens in reality. To me, it sounds like a mafia operation, really, to think that if I was a buyer, I would be asked, or I would have the liberty, or whatever it may be, how it operates within the retailer, I do not know, that I could call up a supplier and threaten them that way. To me, it just like it happens in the movies, but actually it doesn't happen in the movies, guys. It happens here with retailers and supplier relationships. Continuous pressure to lower prices. Now, think about it this way, okay? You and I will be very happy if the prices go down, right? Why will we be happy if the prices go down? You can put things in the chat as I go through as well, okay? Your own thoughts and stuff like that, because that makes it more interesting as well. Why would we like it? Now, the thing is, at the moment, we know inflation is sky high. People are really, really feeling the pinch. Energy prices up, everything up. People, I mean, you will have heard in the news how, some people are thinking of cutting down on the amount of food they eat, how many meals they eat, because they have to pay for the energy prices and stuff like that. So in this position, if a retailer uses continuous pressure to lower prices, it is good for us consumers. However, let's look at it from the perspective of the supplier. The suppliers can only go down that far. Beyond the point, a supplier may not exist. The whole family and everybody associated with the supplier perishes. Is that what we want in society? I don't think we want that in society, do we? Because at the end of the day, business should also be responsible business, yeah? And I would always want you guys, when you go out in the market, when you go out into all your different jobs and stuff, to be really responsible in the way you do business. If you're in retail, if you're in any kind of industry, wherever you work, be responsible, be thoughtful. Yeah, be thoughtful of all the various variables that are working in that operation, and not be ruthless. And the way this operation happens can be quite ruthless. The continuous pressure to lower prices, etc. They cannot invest in the business, and quite a few other things. The use of competitive tendering, they can use for unbranded commodity prices like cheese and stuff, and the competitive tendering pushes it so far that some are unable to ever reach market. Own label development to weaken brand power. Now, many of you possibly, or maybe not, if you're like me, go for the retail brands, right? You may go to wherever you do, say Morrison's or wherever. You may actually like to buy the retail brand. In other words, the private label brand. So you go to Tesco, you buy Tesco's washing up liquid, Tesco's this, Tesco's that, Tesco's the other, right? Because you're sold to the retail brand, and you really don't care much about the brand, the well-known brand, okay, the international brand, the global brand, or whatever it may be. And one example would be if you were to buy, say, Sainsbury's Cola as opposed to Coca-Cola. I mean that kind of says a lot, right? A person who buys that can buy everything of a retail brand. So it provides an alternative to reduce retailers' dependency on brands. So the more people, the more and more people who buy the retailer's own brand, which we also call private label, and I'll be interchangeably using this, private label, own label, the more the retailer becomes more and more powerful. How is it that the retailer today, Tesco's and Sainsbury's and stuff, are making enormous profit? This quarter, they've made more profit than they made last year. How does that happen? When inflation is so high and they are apparently, supposedly, they look after the consumers and they don't want to pass the high costs that they are facing to the consumers. If they're not passing on the high costs, how are they making all this profit? Is it also because they are squeezing the suppliers beyond their lives? Is it because they're really not passing on the profits they're making on that side to the consumers? Are they passing on the high prices to us? What is it? Yeah, they exploit in terms of how they exploit, okay, and how they leverage their buyer power. Okay, this is all buyer power. The retailers increasing buyer power. That is why it has moved from supply push to demand pull. Okay, how do they do that? Retailers serve three roles for brand producers. Okay, not just one role, three roles: as their customers. In other words, they're gatekeepers to consumers. You see, Coca-Cola can't reach us really. I mean, of course, you can have, all those places where you just vending machines and stuff where you can buy Coca-Cola, etc., etc. However, the retailers are reaching us not by a Coca-Cola shop, is it? They're reaching us through the retailers. Coca-Cola is reaching us through the retailers. In other words, the retailer is a gatekeeper for the brand producers. They are competitors at the same time. So I'm buying from you, I'm the customer, I'm selling on to the consumer. I'm also your competitor. How am I your competitor? I'm your competitor because I'm selling my own label. Yeah, selling own label. You're selling your own Sainsbury's Sainsbury's Cola. And you're also the supplier. How are you the supplier as a retailer? Because you're supplying shelf and advertising space. Yeah. So the brand manufacturer can only reach me as a consumer via the retailer. The retailer at the same time can really squeeze you as a brand manufacturer by having their own label, promoting that own label, hoping more and more consumers buy the own label rather than the brand. And on top of it, they can decide where they're going to place my products. They may place it in a position where it is not very visible to the eye. Remember, in supermarkets and everything, eye level is the most prominent level. Eye level is the most expensive shelf space. Okay? So if you push a product away from that and decide where you're placing them, you are actually, again, controlling it, right? You're not only controlling the space, the shelf space, but you're also controlling the position of the shelf space and the advertising space. So do you see how much control the retailer has? It is absolutely phenomenal. So it can exploit the different roles it has. So retailers as customers, as we just talked, retailers as competitors, and retailers as suppliers. So the pressure on suppliers is kind of three-pronged. It's an enormous pressure on suppliers. Now, big brand manufacturers, yes, they are squeezed as well, but they also know how powerful they are. And we'll talk about why are they so powerful, yeah? But imagine a small supplier. Do they have that kind of power? No, they don't. You know, nobody is desperate to buy their products because you have others as well. I mean, if that supplier doesn't sell it, some other supplier will sell it and whatever else, and I wouldn't know. I would be, it'd be none the wiser. So this power play is, to me, is more power than, camaraderie or, they coexist. Yes, they coexist, but where does the power play lie? So let's look at different forms of retailer buyer power. Okay, now I'm going to have a sip of water. Okay, so Buyer power is manifested in two main ways. How are they? Buying effectiveness, okay? Buying effectiveness on supply prices. How does that work? Lowest prices generally obtained by firms with highest market share. Obviously, the more you buy, the better price you get. Your economies of scale, the enormous amount that you buy because you're centrally buying for all your stores and everything else, you have super buying power. And that buying power allows suppliers to give you the best price. In fact, small retailers can pay significantly more, 10% more for their goods than leading chains. And now can you see why large retailers, super retailers like the four we talked about, have so much more power than small retailers? If a small retailer has to pay 10% more for their products than the large retailers, you can see the profitability, how it works. And why does that happen? Why do they have to pay 10% more sometimes? I used to have a table, even Waitrose pays more for some of its for some of its products. Why does this happen? It's because when a supplier has to give big retailers a better price, right? They're giving them a much better price. They obviously are not going to make a loss, are they? They are still going to want to make they're still going to absolutely want to make that profit that they want to make. But how can they do that if they have to give certain things at a much lower price? By only charging smaller retailers who are still dependent on them for those products, by charging them a higher price, which seems really kind of not the best thing to do. However, this is business. In business, you do that. Is that responsible business? Yes, guess it is responsible business, because it is your business. If you're having to give a good price somewhere else, you'll have to give a slightly worse price somewhere else. So this is how it works. So the buying effectiveness on supply prices, okay? Contractual obligations placed on suppliers. This is where I think there is a lot of irresponsible stuff happening, a lot of unethical stuff happening. To provide direct or indirect financial benefits, okay? Suppliers, for instance, I mentioned a little while ago, suppliers paying shelf space fees or retailers delaying payments to suppliers. Now, many of you who are from the UK will know about 2 or 3 years back, there was this huge case against Tesco, that Tesco wasn't paying their suppliers within the time limit that they're supposed to pay. Now, remember, suppliers particularly small suppliers, and given we know that it is the small suppliers who are the larger section of suppliers, if you control how much, if you don't pay them the money, they really don't have the money to get on with the business. So it is critically important to pay suppliers what they deserve when they deserve. And there was a huge case and stuff, a lot of stuff came out in the market, and then Sainsbury's, I think, was the first to say, we are going to pay and Morrison's too, pay the suppliers as agreed and when it is agreed to pay. So if it is in 30 days, then it'll be exactly then. And Tesco followed suit. So things are looking a bit better on that front. So now, sometimes suppliers are also asked to pay for shelf space. That if you don't pay, it's called pay to play. Okay, you want to be on the shelves, you want to sell in our retail space, you have to pay to be on the shelf. That is not kind of within contract. It is not something that they would have had to do, but all of a sudden it may come up to them, right? And retailers delaying payments to suppliers. To increase suppliers' economic dependency, retailers can ask suppliers to give them exclusive contracts, okay, exclusive supply agreements, so that if I was a supplier, I could be forced, okay, I could be forced by the retailer to make a contract where I would promise that I would only supply to that retailer. What happens with that situation? Very simply, great, okay, I am only supplying to this retailer, but does it mean that my business is guaranteed? No. In fact, you are putting yourself in a terrible situation, because if the retailer changes his mind, they might just turn around and say, well, sorry, we've got another supplier who's giving us a better price, and we won't take your product. As simple as that. And you wouldn't be able to go anywhere to get that business change. Okay, so very dangerous. I think the suppliers are in a very precarious position, small suppliers, and retailers to take full advantage of it. Is it just, is it just because of such great business practices do you think retailers make so much profit that they are doing so well? No, it's a lot of other things, unethical things that happen that leads to such huge profitability. To hamper retail rivals, how do they do that? So you're a big retailer and there are other small retailers, you want to really drive them out of the market if you could, but not necessarily can you do that all the time. So if you ask a supplier to make you the most favored customer, then what happens? You get a very good price, right? You get a very good price, and the rival retailers have to pay more for the products. Because I am the little supplier, I have to make you, one of you big retailers, I have to make you the most favored customer. So in this case, I'm not being told to make you the only exclusively supply to you. I am allowed to supply to other retailers, smaller retailers, but I am forced to give you the position of the most favored customer. And therefore, I'm giving you a better price, most likely, which means what? All the other small retailers, I'm charging them more because I still have to make the profit that I need to make to run as a business, right? So all of these things. So does it sound like partnership or does it sound like power struggle and dominance? Let's look at some examples of contractual obligations, okay? Payments for shelf space, slotting allowances, and pay-to-play and pay-to-stay fees. Sometimes you might find that you go to a store and you find that certain products you buy on a regular basis is not there in the store. This has happened with me a few times. Like I used to buy Alpro milk. You must know the brand Alpro. Okay, I used to buy Alpro soya milk for my son. And once, I think one particular store, again, we don't mention stores, which retailer it is, a retailer that I normally buy my stuff from, no soya milk to be seen, no Alpro to be seen. And I was quite dependent on that product. Okay. And then what do I find by really looking into it, researching into it, that particular Alpro was delisted. Okay, it was delisted. Now, there are different ways and different reasons why a retailer can delist a brand. It's control and power. Okay. Now, Alpro is quite a big brand, not as big a brand, of course not, like Coca-Cola or anybody else, and they can be delisted, and it's not a brand that everybody's buying. It's not something that brings you to the store. In my case, I was dependent on that product because of an allergy. So, do you see? So they can delist you. Retailers can delist brands. They can, just cut you out of the of being present on their shelves because perhaps they did not get what they wanted from the supplier. Maybe they asked for really some sort of leverage that the brand wasn't ready to give them. Because don't forget, this brand is also present with other retailers. So they perhaps took the decision that fine, you want to delist us, but we're not going to give you what you want at this current moment. However, over time, that particular brand came back into the store, was back in the store. So obviously, some negotiations took place and they were again ready to pay to play. So did you see how these things work? So if you ever go to a store and you buy a particular brand that you are very keen on, you find them not there. It's not because the supply didn't happen. If you find this is not there for a period of time, it may be because it has been delisted by the retailer, okay? Exclusive supply obligations only supply us. So they control the market that way. So they control the supplier by saying you only supply to us. We are exclusive, you only supply to us. And maybe it could be a supplier, which is supplying to other retailers. Now they can't do that. And then the retailer is controlling both the supplier The retailer is also controlling the consumer because you possibly like to buy this product in the different retailers you go to. Many of us go to different retailers. We cherry pick. We are not finding the product elsewhere, then I will keep going to this retailer because this retailer has it. So you see, the control, the control and power that a big retailer has in this market is phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal. Late, most favored customer we talked about, give us your best price. And this best price could be something that the supplier is loath to give, but is being forced to give to survive in business. But they will make up for it from small retailers by charging them much higher prices. Because at the end of the day, the supplier wants to keep the biggest retailer in their business. Late payments and enforced sale or return, shifting business risk onto suppliers. Now, this happens a lot, right? A supplier supplies goods to the retailers, and the retailers, the contractual agreement is this, that what doesn't sell goes back to you. I mean, talk about power, yeah? Talk about no risk. If I'm the retailer and you send me 100 items, 100, pieces of a particular item, and I sell 50, I send you back the 50. What do you do with it? That's your problem, not mine. And yet, I am this most powerful retailer. So it's a question of shifting business risk. So if I look at it now, if you think about all the stuff we've just covered, you find that every risk is actually being taken by the supplier. No risk whatsoever is being taken by the retailer. And to me, this doesn't seem to be right. It really doesn't seem to be right. It kind of makes me really annoyed when I think about it. And yeah. And the next one is about retrospective discounts and enforced contributions, post-contractual opportunism when suppliers have no alternative. So basically, you have a contract, the suppliers are supplying to you, and then you make them pay you more. You have the contract, they're supplying to you, you ask them to pay to play, you ask them to pay, say, just the buyer picks up the phone and says, okay, pay us 100,000 or whatever, or else. So this kind of things happen where it's all very opportunistic and the supplier is always the receiving end of it. Yeah, it's always the retailer who has all the power and the suppliers have no alternative. They can't go anywhere else. So this is what I was talking about just a few minutes ago, okay? As to what does Tesco do? It delays payments to suppliers and stuff like that. What are the accusations? What are the investigations? If you go into these sites, just have a look and you will find that, there is a lot of information out there. And you also see how some of the suppliers are in such precarious conditions and how critically important it is that retailers pay suppliers when they're supposed to pay on time and in full, and not part payments whenever they wish to do so. Right, just give me 1 second. Right, just I'll have a sip of water. So there are a few questions out here. Why is it often easier for a retailer to switch different suppliers, but harder for a supplier? Now, we just talked about this, didn't we? So if I were to ask you this question, what would you say to the first question? What would be your response? Any response to the first question? And while somebody is responding to the first question, let me answer to Henry. You're absolutely right that the Grocery Supply Code of Practice can protect UK suppliers against such issues. Indeed, it can. However, this particular Grocery Supply Code of Practice doesn't seem to have much teeth in it. Because, why do you think it doesn't have much teeth in it? Because suppliers are scared. Suppliers are frightened to even go to this using this code, go to the, you know, there is ombudsman and stuff on all of these issues, to go to them and tell them who the retailer is, what the problem is, why are they scared? Because although this is supposed to be all kept absolutely quiet and anonymous or whatever else, and nobody's supposed to know about it, retailers get to know about it. If retailers get to know about this, what happens to the supplier? The supplier is a dead duck. They cannot do any more business. That is why suppliers often do not take advantage of the GSCOP, okay? Because they are petrified that they will lose business. It's all power play again. Yes, exactly, Daisy. There are many more suppliers, thousands of suppliers, whereas 4 retailers share most of the grocery sector. Absolutely right. And Henry, you're saying suppliers with little power against grocery giants to have to say yes or lose out. Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And I just think it's so, it's just terrible. And especially in a market where we think, everything is so regulated, everything is so good and clean, and there's protection and stuff. And then you come to this situation, you come to the end of the module, and you find, well, it's not quite as good as one would have expected. I would have expected it to be better, really, but it's not. So if grocery supply chains are dominated by powerful retailers, how do food drink producers like Coca-Cola, Unilever, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Kraft, etc. earn billions of pounds and dollars in profits each year? Good question, isn't it? So how do they earn? And if they're so dominated by the retailers? I'd like to see some answers there too. How can small retailers compete against the buyer power of the major retailers to ensure they remain competitive and economically viable? Any thoughts? Now, one of the things why, for question number 2, how do the Coca-Cola and others still earn billions of pounds and dollars in profit each year? Because they are global manufacturers, right? They're global companies selling to all over the world. Who in the world doesn't know Coca-Cola? Who in the world doesn't know the Unilever products or Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Kraft, etc.? They are not just selling here in the UK to the 4 retailers or 6, 7, 8 retailers. They're selling all over the world. Yeah, their business is varied, spreads across the world. So they do make those profits. They're not, they are also something else we need to remember, that however powerful the retailers are, the 4 big retailers are, they cannot mess around the big brands too much either, because they need them. This is the difference, you see. They need these suppliers, they need these big brands, because these big brands are the pull factor for customers. Now, there are some people like me who are, I don't mind sharing with you. I am very much a brand person, okay? I absolutely try and avoid buying any retailer brands, because that's how I kind of grew up, and I carry on. And I'm sure in terms of quality and stuff, some of the retailer brands, which are, they have the price line, they have a product line, right? They go from the bottom to the top and stuff. The top end might be as good as a brand or whatever. But I feel quite annoyed with retailers generally, so I just go for the brand. Yeah. So where I can. In some cases you can't, so you don't. So you see, the customers also get pulled into. You and I, we all go to retailers because we also buy some brands. If you don't find Coca-Cola when you're going, or you don't find Pepsi, then you may not go to that store. You'll go to another store, because those are the pull brands. Okay, so they have a lot of power here as well. They're not messed about. Now, how can small retailers compete against the buying power of the major retailers? We talked about this in the past, okay? In the past, I say, in one of the early lectures, where small retailers can band together, work under an umbrella, and therefore they have departments to do the marketing, departments for buying and all of that. So they're buying in large amount, right? So they're not buying for, in small quantities and not getting the economies of scale. They're getting the economies of scale because they have all banded together, and therefore make it more competitive and economically viable. Okay. Okay, here you have your QR code. I do have these QR codes in random places, don't I? I mean, is there a reason I have it here? I can't say I do. Once you've taken it, can somebody, one person, just say yes, and then I will know that everybody else possibly has done it. Okay, thank you. Right. Next one. Oh yes, this was not so random, was it? We're on the 5th topic of this lecture, so it wasn't random. Case study. Producer brands versus retail brands. Retailer own brands, which is also private label, okay? So I'll interchangeably use all these words. Battle of the giants in the grocery industry. So let's look at this. Key questions to consider for us, okay? Who holds the greater market power and the balance of negotiating power when giant brand producers supply giant retailers? And we'll answer many of these questions as we go forward. And in fact, if you think about it, we have answered this question as we have gone through this lecture too. How can retailers develop and leverage their own brands? We are talking about it constantly. Private label to countervail and undermine the power of brand producers. And over time, private label has become more and more and more sophisticated, and that they have really started undermining the power of brand producers. And even many brand lovers are actually sometimes switching on certain products to private label, to the retailer own brand, okay? Why do retailers develop copycat lookalike own brands that deliberately appear very similar to leading producer brands? Can you think about this and give me some thoughts on this one on the chat? That why do retailers do that? Copycat. I mean, you're a retailer, you know, you have all the power in the world, obviously. You have the three-pronged power. You're the customer, you're the competitor, you're the supplier of space, you're supplying advertising space, you're supplying shelf space, you're making a private label. Why then copy the look of the brand product? Why do that? How can brand producers respond to maintain their market power? Okay, let's answer some of these questions as well. Okay. Yeah, indeed. This is a good point, a very good point. There are many reasons why they do that, but people certainly associate the imagery of big brands with quality, and the fact. So the retailer wants to replicate that idea, and the retailer wants to show that my product is as good as these branded products. And look at it, even the picture is the same. And in fact, sometimes they position their products, the private label product, so close to the branded product that you and I, if we're in a rush, we can make a mistake and pick up even the, what do you call, the private label. It has happened to me. I was in a rush, I picked up the private label. And also it allows customers to make the switch sometimes, you know, in a fashion that they're not thinking about it too much, because it just looks so similar. Gosh, it looks so similar, surely, and the pricing is so similar. But wow, the private label price is lower. Actually, it's much lower than this other branded product, which looks just the same. And we look all going by the looks, of the packaging. Oh, it looks just the same, but look at it, it's much cheaper, and etc. So in every which way you look at it, copying the image, copying the look helps the retailers significantly. So the importance of retailer own brands. Own brands, usually called private label or own label, make up nearly half the product line's sales in UK supermarkets. So that is pretty significant, isn't it? Own label products tend to be cheaper than comparable brands, so have higher volume share than value share. They're charging, remember, they're charging slightly less. So in terms of value that they're making, the profit that they're making is less compared to the volume they're selling. So they're selling high volumes. Some retailers almost entirely focused on own label. Marks and Spencer's, Aldi and Lidl. And in fact, you know what? If you ask me, I trust those retailers much more because that is their value proposition. That is their business proposition. You're going there and you're buying that, and that's what it is. For other retailers, own label brands tend to be around half the product line stock. Tesco, Asda, Sainsbury's, Morrison, Co-op, Waitrose, etc. Own label brands are also a major feature of most European markets, and you'll see that. In fact, some of the European markets are seriously high on private label. Okay, and many of you will have traveled a lot in Europe, and you will find that private label is massive business there, absolutely massive business there. So you can see how over time private label has taken over big time. So what is its position in Europe? Private label share by country. And you can see Switzerland is the highest, yeah, by volume, 49.6%, so nearly 50% private label share, excuse me, as opposed to branded share. Spain, so you can see it's an interesting picture, isn't it? Next comes the United Kingdom. So private label volume share approaching 50% in several countries, as we see from this picture. Strong private label growth in some countries, while more stable shares in others. Differences between private label value and volume shares reflect private label brand price differentials. So let's see the differential. How does it look? Oh, what's happening? Okay, right. So in terms of country, okay, we will look at the country rankings here, what we just saw in the diagram figure before. Country rankings by volume share, Switzerland, Spain, United Kingdom, and that's how it's looking, right? I'm not surprised about Italy. You know, Italy and private label share and brand share, not surprised about it. You can have your own ideas as to why that would be the case. I wonder if your ideas would be similar to mine. Volume share measures the number, that is quantity, of units packs sold, as I mentioned to you. Volume, that's the volume sold, while compared to value, is a value share measures the monetary value, revenue from sales. Obviously, your revenue from private label is slightly less than branded because branded goods are naturally higher priced. Now, this one shows you where you see that large private label brand price differential indicates private label quality viewed as inferior to brand quality. And look at Italy, okay? They look at private label as inferior in quality. Yeah? No. Let's look at this one. This is this in Spain. So Spain, they're looking at it as actually inferior to brand quality, while we find in Switzerland, it's actually they consider it to be pretty much all right, isn't it? Yeah. So those in amber here, or rather amber, orange, yes, in orange is small private label brand price differential indicates private label quality viewed as similar to brand quality. Yeah. In orange, we consider it to be similar to brand quality. Not a surprise, is it? So in volume share and value share, this is a differential, but this is actually showing that we don't think there's much of a difference, which kind of is kind of accurate information for all of us, isn't it? When you look at the retailers and how well they're doing with their private label. Yeah. And in the other places, we find that they actually think it's okay. Brand and own label competition and coexistence. So how do they coexist? Now we know brand manufacturer or brands, which are the producer brands, again, interchangeably used with manufacturer brand, and supermarket own brands, which are the private labels, they're all competing for your attention, my attention, everybody's attention. Their rivalry is a combination of horizontal competition, same stage, and vertical competition, trading aspect. We'll see this in a minute. But the retailer's advantage, they are competing, yes, horizontally they're competing, vertically they're competing. But the retailer has so many other advantages, right? It sets the store price. Remember, manufacturers cannot, retail price maintenance and all that, manufacturers cannot tell retailers what price a particular product should be sold at. It is up to the retailer to decide what product they're going to sell for what price, the placement of the product in terms of the shelf, the promotion of the product, everything. So guess what? Very simply, they can favor their own label products at any time. Yeah, they can favor their products in such a way that you and I are attracted to their products as opposed to branded products. Yet a retailer may need both brands and private labels, as brands help to compete with rival retailers. As brands help to get the customer in, there are certain brands that are absolutely necessary for any retailer, however big they are, because they are the pull brands, okay? While private labels keep brand power in check, so there might be an uneasy coexistence. The brand manufacturers don't particularly like the big power that retailers have over them. At the same time, they need to be present in those retailers, right? Similarly, the retailers don't particularly like the brands and they want to completely usurp them. They want to have their own ranges and completely get rid of the brand, of the big brands. They can't because they have a big pull factor. So it is a coexistence, but kind of not the most happy coexistence. They just coexist because they have to. So retailers have a double agency role in serving as both customer and competitor to brand manufacturers. So they are competing here, yeah, they are buying from them, they're competing here, and they're competing here, and they have more power, yeah. In the vertical competition, they have so much more power, and in the horizontal too. But they also serve as a third role, as supplier of shelf space. The supplier of shelf space is their customers, their competitors, their everything, and they control completely getting to the consumers. They can control all the information, the data, everything on the consumers is controlled by the retailer. Yeah. Therefore, all of these three combinations of power of being supplier, competitor, customer, everything increases the retailer's bargaining power over brand producers. So, I mean, forget about the power they have over little suppliers because they have 100% total power and control over small suppliers. No question about that. But they even have serious bargaining power over big retailers. And that is why sometimes, as you will have experienced yourself, they can delist suppliers. They can delist major suppliers, which they have done, and they do. And you get to hear about it. And then they come back again in the market because they kind of come to negotiated positions. Brand and own label coexistence. How does that work? It's a coalescing power, copper fastening dominance, where they actually completely dominate. The major retailer completely dominates everything. They dominate the leading brand category captain, they dominate the minor brands, they dominate everything. And the small retailer are pretty much getting the leftovers. So basically, it is the small retailers, and that is why, guys, I think you and I and all of us, we must favor small retailers. We must go and buy in the small retailers because I think in some ways it is a responsible thing to do. It's an ethical thing to do, I think, sometimes. Yeah, it's a good thing to do. And in fact, while I'm saying these things to you, I should remember it myself and do more on that front. So it risks all of this, all of this control is risk at disadvantaging small rivals, facilitating collusion. And we know that collusion sometimes happens, but we also know right at the start of the lectures in the retail environment and stuff, we talked about collusion, and that if collusion is found out, the retailers and brands, they might have to pay a huge fine, 10% of their overall profit and all of that. And sometimes collusion is found, but somehow they seem to, and the fines have also been, meted out. But many a times they seem to come out of collusion with facts and figures to say that this was actually happened, but it wasn't meant to happen. That they actually did not collude, but somehow the same price happened with different retailers. Okay, so somehow they get out of it. Exploiting triple role to favor own label. So how do they do that? Possible business advantages for the retailer to favor own label. Okay, so they can generate higher margins, saving on brand marketing costs, free riding on brand investments. Remember, when you look at adverts, which I mean, many of us I think rarely do now. How many of you watch really television? I don't know. I don't watch television. I watch, you know, Netflix and others. So you don't come across adverts really in that sense. So, but if you look at adverts, you go to other countries, okay, but especially in other countries, you have big billboards of adverts. They're really, we don't see billboards here really, do we? Billboards of adverts, big brands advertising and stuff. Here we do see some billboards of McDonald's, really, very annoyingly. So yeah. So what's happening? They are saving. They're generating higher margins by saving on marketing, saving on advertising, free riding on brand, free riding on so many different things. Let's look at what else they're free riding on. They're free riding on, on the look of the products. We'll look into it in further detail. Facilitate consumer segmentation. They are selling, say for instance, they're selling chocolate, okay? Many of us only like to have branded chocolates. However, there are many of us also who like to have, say, Tesco's chocolate. Tesco has categories on all of that. Tesco has categories of products. They have product lines. They price them at different levels. So you can choose, you can choose as to how much money you want to spend. But Tesco's Finest, you'll find, is very close to the brand that it is competing against. Yeah. And what does it? It facilitates consumer segmentation. Now, if I'm going for a particular brand, I'm going for the particular brand. But if I was somebody who actually wanted to try out different prices, different products, and actually was not that bothered about the quality, but wanted to check it out, a brand is not giving me the possibility of checking it out, right? In terms of different layers or tiers. But the private label is allowing me the possibility because it has tiered products. What does it help with? It helps with consumer segmentation. The more you can segment, the more profit you're also making because you're pulling in all sorts of different people. Promote own label and build consumer loyalty. Label bearing retailer's name, drawing quality inferences from the leading brands, consumers champion image. As I said to you, many of us think, oh, when they're advertising and promoting products in retailers before Christmas, before such and such, they're saying 2, 3 for 2, this is promo, that's promo, that's promo, different branded goods are on promo. You think they're giving it to us? No, they're actually making profit out of us because it is the manufacturer, it is the branded goods manufacturer who are giving them that possibility to promote. They are paying for it. Retailers are benefiting from it. Enhance retailer differentiation and reduce price comparability. Differentiation as own brands are unique to the retailer. So, we often talk about how differentiation is so important. Everybody can sell the same products that when retailers all start competing on price, it is a zero-sum game. It is, it really drives everything to the bottom because you reduce price by 1p, somebody else reduces by 1p, another one reduces by 1p. This tit for tat strategy on pricing doesn't really lead to anything positive in retail. However, with retailer-owned brands, they have the power of differentiation. And not only are they differentiating in terms of that, they have their brand. So say if you like Tesco's X product, you actually like Tesco's X product more than Sainsbury's product, that similar product, because there's a differentiation that you like in that Tesco's product, okay? So they even have the power of differentiation by taking advantage of producer brands actually. and therefore they reduce price comparability. So if Tesco's price on X is slightly more than Sainsbury's price on X, you're still going to Tesco because you like their differentiation, whatever it is that is appealing to you. Differentiation as own brands are unique to the retailer. Weaken brand producers' bargaining position. Extract more favorable terms through increased discounts and incentive payments from brand producers. And that is why that they get also very good deals from big brand manufacturers in terms of the promos they do in the retail outlets. All of this largely are paid by big brand manufacturers. So you see, to be a retailer is such a fascinatingly good position to be in. Power, power, power. I see only power with them. Using the marketing mix to favor own label. So how are they doing it? And the thing is, they seem to have everything in their control, to be honest. In terms of the product, they can influence consumers' product choices. How are they doing that? They are controlling the range. Yeah. When a manufacturer, when a brand, okay, when a brand comes up with a new product, say a new chocolate, okay, a new chocolate with a new combination of stuff in it and stuff comes out, before they can really sell it, they have to tell the retailer. Yeah. So say I'm from Nestle and we are going to be developing a new product. Remember, new product innovation attracts customers too. As customers, as consumers, we want more and more new products to come in the market, don't we? We want to remain excited about products. We want to remain excited about going out and shopping and stuff like that. Manufacturer, big brands want to make more and more money. So it's all a win-win situation if they can keep innovating. But in all of this win-win situation, there is a big winner in all of this. Who is the big winner? Okay, it is the retailer. How is the retailer such a big winner? The brand manufacturer doesn't even have the advantage of being out in the market with a new product in the UK without having to tell the retailer what the product will be. They have to tell the retailer what the product will be, how will it be designed, what will be the content, what will be the size, what will be the price, and everything. So basically, advance notice happens, every bit of advanced information that is required for a retailer to copy that stuff happens. Why? Because they need the shelf space. The brand manufacturers need the shelf space. They need the promo to go with the new product and everything else. And a retailer sits in a very comfortable position because they are what? They are the gatekeepers. Do not forget, they're the gatekeepers who are selling to you and I. They need the information prior. As soon as they have the information, they can get their producers producing their own label immediately into the business, and they can sort it out because they're very powerful in their manufacturing basis. Okay, retailers. So, and not only that, not only will they kind of, if they're captured by the product, not only can they develop very similar to the new innovative product, they can even develop the tiers even before it hits the market. Okay, so big power. Private label, multiple quality tiers, brand delisting, everything else. So they can do a lot of stuff. Price, influencing consumers' value perceptions, and many consumers actually. Not every consumer will be like you, who are now retail experts, who have a lot of information and knowledge in retail, who now go to stores and you think with a retail cap on. I'm sure many of you will do that and are doing that. And I'm sure many of you will continue doing that. Label bearing retailer's name. Yes, draw quality inferences from the leading brands. Framing effects, they're framing, right? Your new product comes out in the market. Your, say, Sainsbury's, the best one, or Tesco's finest, or whatever else it is, actually showing pretty much the same thing, slightly lower price, seems to have the same ingredients, has the retailer's name and everything else, and yet you've copied everything. Place, influencing consumers' accessibility, gatekeeper power controlling distribution, in-store product placement, shelf allocation, shelf positioning, stock replenishment. So if you really want to push the product, okay, new product in the market, new Nestle chocolate in the market, looking fantastic. You have already developed your tiers of the product that you want to sell. Okay, if you find that your product is going kind of rather well in the market, you can choose to delist that you can choose to delist Nestle for a while, but you would have to obviously have very good reason for it. But you have so much power, you can always find a reason. So shelf positioning, shelf allocation, everything. Remember, eye level is the best shelf position for a product, and you'll find that those products which are on eye level normally are on the expensive side of products. The bottom shelf you'll find normally is the cheapest price for a product category. Okay, just check it out. Why? Because it's more difficult. You have to bend down, you have to pick it up, and all that sort of stuff. You will find that the design on the packaging is also on the cheaper variety, and all of that. Okay. Promotion, influencing consumers' knowledge. Controlling in-store advertising, media advertising campaigns, switch and save, targeted advertising, cheaper alternatives, personalized marketing, loyalty card data, blah, 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 blah. Many of you will have experienced this as well. Those of you who have Tesco's Club Card and perhaps always buy at Tesco and whatever, you will find that you are sent, you send personalized marketing. You're sent that you can save on these products because they know they have all the data on you. These are the products you buy. So they're controlling. They're controlling through the promotions and through their knowledge of you and I. They have so much information. The Nectar card, the Tesco card, the this card, the that card, they have all the information. In fact, they might know more about what you buy than you know yourself sometimes, I think. And they're controlling in-store advertising. We talked about switch and bait and stuff in a previous lecture, if you remember. And all of these things, the switch and save and the shill and bait and stuff that retailers do, and they're constantly trying to switch us as well from brand to private label. And they have got everything going for them, from the product design, from tiers of products, from the pricing to the positioning to the promotion. What is it that they don't have? The only thing they don't have is they can't get into your head and absolutely make you do something, right? But other than that, they have everything going for them. Now let's look at this. Okay, brand lookalike, stealing trade dress. Well, I think it's a complete rip-off and daylight robbery, if anybody was to ask me. Look at Coke, yeah, and then look at Sainsbury's Classic Cola. I mean, all of a sudden, if you're in a rush, you might just go and pick it up because you're just looking at the color and our eyes sometimes pick up on information, but they don't pick up on everything. Look at all of these things, easily pickable, right? Originals versus the lookalikes. You can pick it up easily. You can easily pick it up. And those who are not easily picking up by mistake, I would not want to pick any of these items. Okay? I only want to pick up those that I pick up, the branded ones. But I may be in a rush and I may end up picking this up because, hey ho, you know what? I haven't had the time to look at all of those things. But I'll be upset because they are making my brain make mistakes, so to speak. Yeah. And these are real stealing of trade dress. And they are being allowed. This is the unfortunate thing. I never really get it, why they are allowed. If you are as powerful and if you think you're so very good, why can you not have your own packaging, your own designs? Which tells me that they are really not that powerful in the sense of believing in their products. They are taking advantage all the time of brand manufacturers and their products to stand strong and work on their coattails, but in such a way that they're making super profit compared to them. You can see each of the products here, each of the products, how they are. They're so close, so very close to the branded manufacturers. Brand lookalikes, stealing trade dress, Slapgate, you must have heard about that. Hotel Chocolat accuses Waitrose of ripping off curvy chocolate bar designs. So this is a Hotel Chocolat chocolate. This is the Waitrose's chocolate. Well, they don't seem very different, do you? No, they don't. And I might just go and pick it up. Oh, sorry, I picked up the Waitrose ones, but actually I wanted the Hotel Chocolat ones. Waitrose agreed to stop making the totally, apparently coincidentally, very similar bars. Can you see how they get away with it? Do you think anybody there thinks that it could be coincidentally very similar bars coming out at very similar times? What do you think, guys? Please do make your opinions known. I like opinions. I really like opinions. And this really makes me mad. It makes me mad about all these coincidentally very similar bars, you know, and coincidentally similar this, coincidentally similar that. So look at this. Yeah, Waitroses. Everybody's there. The retailers are taking advantage. There is no doubt about it, and being readily allowed to, really. Compare and save promotions. In-store signage tactic used in grocery, general merchandising, drugstore, and stationery retailers. Also used in advertising leaflets and press TV adverts, large-scale switching marketing campaigns in the UK. Many of you will have experienced many of these things, right? Sainsbury's Switch and Save, promoting switch to Sainsbury's own brand and save at least 20%. I mean, really? Really? Okay. Aldi compare and save advertising cost savings by switching to Aldi's own label. Now, this one to me is more believable than that one. Now, of course, it is possible for a retailer on a certain day pick up certain products as a basket and show it on that certain day or certain week, that how switching to their own brand of their products could be cheaper by 20%. But if you left that certain day and went to a certain time, another time, it may not be quite so. While all these compare and save tend to be pretty much authentic. Sainsbury's Switch and Save. So they're showing a basket of products here, save £13 and 8 pence, switch to Sainsbury's own brand and save on these products, etc., etc. Trying to influence us, trying to influence the consumers all the time. Advertising on national television, through leaflets, through this, through that. They have everything in there, in-store advertising, everything. Switch to Sainsbury's own brand and save, and they're giving you the list of products that you can do so. Aldi's compare and save. Aldi, like brands, only cheaper. They're showing these products, which are the branded products. Then they're giving their products here and showing this is the amount you can save, 45%. And now, like I said to you, Aldi is getting more and more entrenched in this market. And watch this space. If our inflation keeps carrying on the way it's going, Aldi is going to become more and more powerful. And remember, Aldi is a discounter, but Aldi discounter does not mean that all these products are discounted and all these products are inferior. They are not. Yeah, they have great economies of scale. They're a very powerful retailer. They do a limited range of products. Their product lines is only 2,000 to 2,500, as opposed to big retailers who do even up to 25 to 30,000 product lines. Okay, so they have a business proposition that really, really does work, and the quality of products are good. Okay, so more believable, and this is going to become more and more entrenched in the market. And I think it's very important for the market share of these retailers to go up, to control Tesco's and Sainsbury's of the world. They are too powerful. Ongoing power struggle. Some brands are must-stock products, which retailers need in their stores to attract customers. Like I said, they act as pulling agents, really. We talked about this, didn't we? Like the Coca-Colas and Pepsis and others, they are the pull for the customers. But some customers will never go to them unless they have those products. Such brands hold considerable negotiating power. Yes, like we say that retailers are all powerful, some suppliers, they may not be all powerful with the Coca-Colas and Pepsis of the world. But the increasing quality of own label products combined with increasing customer loyalty mean brand power is being eroded over time. That is true. As we said, they have tiers of products, people getting more and more, buying more and more retailer private label brands. So over time, branded goods, maybe power of them are getting eroded, but not all branded goods. The Coca-Colas and Pepsis of the world are not getting eroded at all, at all. But there are certain other brands, perhaps, where many other smaller brands are coming into the market. There is a competition going on, even amongst brands, let alone private label competing with them. Okay? Retailers have a Retailers have a strong incentive to undermine and replace brands if they can promote their own labeled products as credible alternatives. True, they can completely shift on certain branded goods if their own private label is deemed by consumers to be just as good. If they seem to be just as good and people are buying more and more of those products, then over time they can really delist those particular brands. And I think over time, a lot of these things perhaps might happen. Therefore, I would suggest to you always walk into the stores with open minds and watch the space as to how does the market develop. And inflation is set to continue. Really, it might even get worse. Then what happens? What happens? Yeah, how many people are going to buy Warburton's bread backs as opposed to Tesco's bread backs? What happens? What happens with all these brands? There's so many brands out there in the market, yeah, in the supermarkets. And watch which ones disappear from the shelf, and watch how the private labels get more and more powerful, because they will. You see, brands fight back. They need to fight back, I say here, but they do fight back by innovation, marketing, finding new alternative ways. However, the problem is, like I said, when they want to use the retailer as, where they're selling the products to reach the consumers, they are controlled, right? Why? Because the retailer is a gatekeeper. The retailer is controlling me and you and everybody, because we are consuming via the retailer. We are going to the retailer to buy. So long as they're controlled by these retailers, all the innovation and everything is being ripped off. Yeah, they're ripping them off right from moment one, from the design to the product they know everything. So they're ripping them off. So unless brands can keep their innovations, can sell their products online direct supply, they will be ripped off by retailers. And I think it would be good if these big brand manufacturers do that. But they haven't really started doing that. Because these are big brands, they are global companies. They're making enormous profit, and despite all the control mechanisms that the retailers have, own label retailers in as you see in Europe and here and everywhere. I can't say Europe and here, I have to use them separately, because here is no longer part of Europe. It is Brexit, right? So it is a small little island on its own. Retailers are powerful, but over time, it'll be interesting to see how this all moves, because innovation is not stopping with the brands, because they are innovating. Although they're being squeezed, they're not squeezed enough. They still are innovating a lot, and long may it continue for you and I as consumers. Mm, on negotiation for retailers, how? They're already negotiating. We don't even know how much they're negotiating anyways, do we? Yeah, but thank you for putting that up. Asik. Yeah, yeah. Is there a natural limit? But remember this, that although private label soft drinks is increasing and all that sort of stuff, but do not forget that market that's still going for brands. No retailer can forego that percentage of the population, that huge percentage of the population who are drawn to their retail only because of the pulling power of brands. So they may want to negotiate, but they cannot negotiate beyond a point. Remember that, okay? And so we come to the end of our lecture. and I have not coughed and made it absolutely miserable for you guys. So we've done actually pretty well, haven't we? I've given you the QR code as well, haven't I? Yeah. You're welcome, Guitong. Tomorrow we're going to do micro marketing. Okay. So now perhaps, is it sunny in Norwich right now? It's sunny here. I hope you can go and enjoy the sunshine. And I hope all your work is coming together well. So is it sunny? Is it sunny? Yes, it is. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, a little bit, you're saying, Ravi. Okay. So I hope the sunshine continues and it gets a bit warmer because I'm tired of just wearing. Oh, my heating is still on. Mostly cloudy for you, Daisy. Okay, yeah. It's actually looking quite all right, but it's still cold. But guys, thank you for being there with me. And I hope you enjoyed the session. This is one of my most favorite topics, in terms of retail, the partnership or power struggle. And I just hope if you guys work in retail, be ethical. Okay, try and be ethical, even if you have your big bosses telling you not to be. Be responsible, be good. Okay, so see you guys tomorrow. And now I'm going to switch off